You're fired. Psych. No, you're not fired. We're transferring you to New York City. It was a back and forth day for National Security Advisor Mike Wlatz, formerly the representative from Florida's 6th District, who yesterday was speculation of some inner turmoil in the White House. And as the fake news media usually does, they started to report that Mike Wlatz had been fired by President Donald Trump and Susie Wiles, and that he was being kicked out of the White House. And later in the day, President Donald Trump released a Truth Social post that showed that was not the case, that once again there was a misrepresentation of the truth in the media. Surprise, surprise. He wrote, "I am pleased to announce that I will be nominating Mike Wlatz to be the next United States ambassador to the United Nations. From his time in uniform on the battlefield, in Congress, and as my national security advisor, Mike Wlatz has worked hard to put our nation's interests first. I know he will do the same in his new role. In the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as National Security Advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Together, we will continue to fight tirelessly to make America and the world safe again. Thank you for your attention to this matter." I will say this, Marco Rubio is getting quite the resume. Every time there's an opening at the White House, Marco Rubio seems to be taking over. Whenever there's an agency that needs to be dismantled, Marco Rubio is the one who takes over that agency and sees to it that it is defunded and dismantled appropriately. But yesterday, Fox News still wasn't convinced that even though President Donald Trump said that he was transferring or moving Mike Wlatz from the NSA and the White House to the United Nations, they were pressing J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, about Mike Wlatz, and Brett Baer from Fox News asked why he was, quote unquote, let go. Here's what J.D. Vance said.
Why was Mike Wlatz let go?
So he wasn't let go. He is being made ambassador to the United Nations, which, of course, is a Senate-confirmed position. I think you can make a good argument that it's a promotion. But we brought Mike on to do some serious reforms of the National Security Council. He has done that. I like Mike. I think he's a great guy. He's got the trust of both me and the president. But we also thought that he'd make a better UN ambassador as we get beyond this stage of the reforms that we've made to the National Security Council. You saw the president announce that Marco Rubio is going to step in as interim leader of the National Security Council. So I think the media wants to frame this as a firing. Donald Trump has fired a lot of people. He doesn't give them Senate-confirmed appointments afterwards. What he thinks is that Mike Wlatz is going to better serve the administration, most importantly, the American people in that role, and I happen to agree with him.
All right, there you go. So when you have a person like President Donald Trump, who is loyal to a fault and who expects loyalty from his staff as well, you don't just cut people loose. In fact, you look at them and say, okay, maybe you have qualifications that better serve us in another role. Maybe you have skill sets or expertise that doesn't necessarily work for the job that you have, but could still work in some other environment to better the United States of America. And Mike Wlatz, who I know personally and have known personally for years, was a fantastic congressman for Florida's 6th District. He was a Green Beret as well, the first Green Beret to serve in Congress as a congressional leader. And we all wish him well and know that he'll do well in his new role as UN ambassador. Of course, that does come, as President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have both stipulated, with Senate confirmation, which means they will be diving back into the Signalgate situation. The Mike Wlatz was the one who accidentally added the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic magazine to their Signal chat about the Houthi bombings in Yemen. And now that seems like it's going to be revisited as he heads to the Senate for confirmation. But once again, he's a tough cookie and a tough nut to crack, and he should do just fine. There was another member of the administration whose name always comes under fire, but who President Donald Trump has sworn he has no issue with and is doing a fantastic job, and that is Pete Hegseth. And J.D. Vance reiterated that particular appointment as well.
On Pete in particular, I think the thing that is most underappreciated about Pete Hegseth and the great job that he's doing is we came in with the military with a serious morale problem. Recruitment and retention goals in most of the major services were way off. Pete has brought a certain esprit de corps. I think the leadership style has inspired a lot of people to join the military. We're now exceeding our recruitment goals. So yes, we've got total faith in Pete.
Esprit de corps, by the way, is a much underutilized statement, and I'm so glad that J.D. Vance has decided to bring it back so that we could utilize it. We could utilize it in every aspect of our lives. But it is true that recruitment was at an all-time low under the previous administration and Lloyd Austin and Joe Biden, and the fact that the administration has put Pete Hegseth, who is not just a model of military might, but also the kind of guy that other guys and women would want to serve under. It shows that we have now an inspiring figurehead at the top of the Pentagon, somebody that is going to make sure that our military is the most lethal, the most well-prepared, the most technologically advanced, the leanest, the meanest fighting machine in the entire world. Also, he's cutting out the waste, fraud, and abuse so that the soldiers who are signing up today, the record number of enlisted men and women who are joining the ranks of America's fighting forces to protect the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic, those folks are going to have money that is specifically designated to help train them, to help them fight and win wars, and to help keep them safe when they are abroad, not on all these other ridiculous things that they were being wasted on. Also, President Trump had a very busy day yesterday. It was a National Day of Prayer, and he had a brand new proclamation that he made. He also had a great ceremony in the Rose Garden where he spoke about the importance of the National Day of Prayer and also spoke about his White House faith office, which he was able to establish. And he said, look, we are bringing religion back to the United States of America.
We're bringing back religion in our country, and we're bringing it back quickly and strongly. Because for America to be a great nation, we must always be one nation under God, a phrase that they would like to get rid of, the radical left. But Ben, I don't think we're going to let them get rid of that, right? We're not letting them get rid of that.
Yeah, we're not going to let the left get rid of God. This is one nation under God. It was a country that was founded by people who were looking for a place where they could freely practice their religion. And President Donald Trump understands that, and he knows that, and he understands also that the tradition of the Day of Prayer is older than our country itself.
Today, as the American people turn to God in prayer, we continue a tradition older than our independence itself. Nearly 250 years ago, on June 12, 1775, the Continental Congress appointed a day of fasting and prayer so that Americans fighting for their liberty could seek the help of the Almighty. And when you look at that, June 12th, 1775, so we have a very, very special day coming up.
He was also talking about how when John Adams was talking about the National Day of Prayer years ago, he shared a story about John Adams and Abigail Adams and a back and forth they had about the importance of all Americans coming together and stopping to thank God for their freedom and for their liberty and for this amazing country that we live in.
In a letter to wife Abigail, John Adams wrote of his first National Day of Prayer, millions will be upon their knees at once before their great Creator, imploring his forgiveness and blessing and asking for his favor on the American cause. Beautiful. Today, more than 2.5 centuries later, in the heart of a free and proud America, we rejoice that God answered those prayers. And I think God answered other prayers because he's put in an administration to run this country that's going to make you proud again.
And make you not scared to be faithful to God or to follow whatever religious principles you follow. And that is why President Donald Trump instituted the White House Faith Office.
I created a historic White House Faith Office in the West Wing. And that's going to be an office that's been very well. I see already you have a lot of people going back and forth, and that's good. That's what we want, to defend and represent people of all faiths and their religious freedoms at home and abroad. But they're coming it's probably doubled the action in the White House. It's been amazing to watch and beautiful to watch. The White House can handle it. This important office will work to protect vulnerable women and children, strengthen the American family, promote the dignity of work and choice in education. And people that are in trouble can come in and they take care of them. Sometimes they'll send them to a doctor. Sometimes Paula does this and Jenny, others that are in the office. They're doing an amazing job. and I wanted him to have that office. Never happened before. I don't think that's ever happened before, right? People of faith have never been allowed in the White House.
And that has changed under President Donald Trump, who understands the value of faith, who is a faithful man himself, and understands that the United States of America, as he said prior, is one nation under God. But that wasn't it. Donald Trump had a very busy day. After his prayer breakfast, after he made that proclamation in the Rose Garden, he flew to Alabama, where he gave the commencement address at the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. And he was very excited for all of these young people whom he was speaking with, because this is the first graduating class under President Donald Trump's new administration, or as he calls it, the new golden age.
As you graduate, it's natural to reflect on 4 years of happy memories, and you've really had happy memories here. You've done a lot of winning. Winning is a good thing to do. But today I'm also asking you to look forward to really something very, very bright and more promising. And it's going to be an even more promising tomorrow. I promise you that. You're the first graduating class of the golden age of America. We're in the golden age. You watch. It's the golden age.
It is a golden age, a new golden age of America. And President Donald Trump had those fantastic messages. He had a really good, I'm going to be honest with you, really good and inspiring speech for not just anyone at the University of Alabama, but anybody who was graduating this year or is graduating this year and wants to start immediately to make their mark on the world, to dedicate their lives to making America great again. Anybody who's graduating right now has the same power and the same responsibility and the same opportunity as anybody else to make America great again.
First, if you're here today and think that you're too young to do something great, let me tell you that you are wrong. You're not too young. You can have great success at a very young age. You're all very young. In America, with drive and ambition, young people can do anything. I was 28 when I took my first big gamble to develop a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, the Grand Hyatt. And it worked out incredibly well, but I was very young at the time. I was like a very young person in sort of an old person business. Steve Jobs was 21 when he founded Apple. Walt Disney was 21 when he founded Disney. James Madison, James Monroe, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson. They were no older than 25 when they began the journeys that etched their names into the history books for all time. So to everyone here today, don't waste your youth. Go out and fight right from the beginning, from the day you leave this incredible university. Go out and fight tough, fight fair, but go out and fight. You're going to be very successful, because now is the time to work harder than you have ever worked before. Push yourself further than you have ever pushed yourself before. Find your limits and then smash through everything. Go and smash through. You've watched that football team smash through. You're going to do the same thing.
President Donald Trump also urged everybody, look, we are not a country of victims. We are a country of people who take risks. We are a country of people who understand that everything we have to get ourselves. And if you have a victim mentality, you will be a victim. But that's not who we are. That's not in our core. That's not in our American tapestry. And it's definitely not in the hearts and minds of the the Crimson Tide at the University of Alabama.
But in America, we reject that idea that anyone is born a victim. Our heroes are the ones who take charge of their own destiny, make their own luck, and determine their own fate despite the odds, despite all odds. That's what happens. They're given a little chance in many cases, very little chance of success, and they become the most successful people in the world. Whether you were born rich or poor, black or white, male or female in America, anyone can be a winner. And our whole country will be cheering you on, and I'll be at the front of the line cheering you on, especially because you come from this incredible university.
President Trump had a special message, by the way, for the business majors in Alabama, and really the business majors anywhere, because being a member of the business community, a graduate of the Wharton School of Business, President Donald Trump himself has a soft spot for business and understands that, look, it's not just about financial gain. Sure, that's great. That's great and all. Everybody wants to make money, but there's other things you can do as a business major to help your country, which has done whatever it can to help you or will continue to do whatever it can to help you as well.
For the business majors here today, I challenge you not merely to use your talents for financial speculation, but to apply your great skills that you've learned and had to forging the steel and pouring the concrete of new American factories, plants, shipyards, and even cities which are going up all over our country. Don't just build a strong portfolio, build a very, very strong America, and you're going to do that.
This is an interesting time for anyone who's graduating because, as President Donald Trump said, he has put in place a position for the United States of America to regain dominance, global dominance, not just economically, not just militarily, but as a manufacturing center. And we are no longer just an investor nation. We're no longer just a computer programmer nation. We're no longer just people that are trading stocks and bonds and currencies and meme coins. This is a country that is developing the future. Boots on the ground, hands on the equipment. We're going to have factories. We're going to have conveyor belts. We're going to have manufacturing hubs, and we are going to be creating new, bigger, better cities. We're going to need some amazing business leaders to do all of it, not just AI technology, but automotive technology and energy technology and all kinds of new technologies that we haven't even discovered yet. And that's what President Donald Trump is hoping for. He's hoping that instead of just creating a bunch of Warren Buffetts, we can create a bunch of Elon Musks. Instead of just people that buy and sell companies, he wants the people out there building them, just like he did from the ground up, and just like many of his administration has done as well. Remember, it's the new golden age, and we need to take risks. We need to continue to grow so that we can continue to dominate. And that was, again, one of his other messages about being a risk taker, being an outsider, being an outlier, not, going against the grain, because that's where success truly lies.
Number 6, if you want to change the world, you have to have the courage to be an outsider. In other words, you have to take certain risks and do things a little bit differently. Otherwise, if that weren't the case, everybody would be successful. It doesn't work that way. Progress never comes from those satisfied with the failures of a broken system. It comes from those who want to fix the broken system. And you'll make the bigger money, you'll make the more success by acting that way. The other way may be more secure, but if you want to go to the top, you're just never going to do it unless you break the system.
Break the system. That's more. Truer words have never been spoken from a man who's lived his life by that mantra. Speaking of breaking the system, breaking news last night, President Donald Trump announced an executive order on the first day of May, ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media. What does that mean? It means he's defunding NPR and PBS, the National Public Radio and the public broadcasting system. NPR and PBS for years, for decades really, have become propaganda arms of the left-wing Democrat Party. They have used taxpayer dollars, millions and millions of subsidized taxpayer dollars, to spread messages that the majority of taxpayers don't agree with. They've been pushing propaganda for reparations. They've been pushing propaganda for gender ideology. They've spent so much money on just the weirdest things you've ever heard of. And now President Donald Trump has said enough is enough. In his executive order, which he signed yesterday, he wrote, "By the authority vested in me as president as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered National Public Radio and the Public Broadcasting Service receive taxpayer funds through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Unlike in 1967, when the CPB was established, today, the media landscape is filled with abundant, diverse, and innovative news options. Government funding of news media in this environment is not only outdated and unnecessary, but corrosive to the appearance of journalistic independence. Therefore, he is immediately ordering that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting cut off all funding to NPR and to PBS. And what people don't realize is that these truly are two of the most fraudulent agencies and two of the most, you want to talk about taking advantage of the American taxpayers. NPR specifically, which were coming from the radio industry, I have a lot of experience with. NPR, if you think about it, had multiple sources of income. Not only did they receive millions and millions of dollars in taxpayer government-funded subsidies every single year, but they also ran telethons and they got donations because they are a tax-exempt organization. They got donations from all kinds of listeners and friends of NPR and friends of PBS, and they would run these telethons where people would send them, again, millions and millions of dollars. And on top of all that, they also got brand deals and sold advertising. So they had government money, they had donor money, and they had advertiser money. They were public and private and everything else. With money coming in from all these different places, you have to scratch your head and ask yourself, where is all this money going? Well, we know now where it's not going. It's no longer going to NPR and or PBS. And that, for one, makes me very happy because, as President Donald Trump said, there's a multitude of various news sources, like, for example, this one, and our second daily podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. We have so much more to get into. We got to talk about China and Ukraine and the tariffs. There's also new information popping up about Harvard University losing their tax-exempt status, and I'm sure there's going to be like 19 other things before 1 o'clock p.m. when we go live with Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. If you prefer to listen to the podcast, by all means, all you have to do is go to Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, search for Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, download, listen, and enjoy.